25 plus years
Mhm.
in New York City in the field of education, and I spent about 15 of those years in the classroom or as a teacher leader in the Boogie Down South Bronx, and that's where I spent my entire career, and the last 10 as a high school principal
Okay.
in the South Bronx. And so during the pandemic, I did the 16-hour shifts for almost 2 years and
Wow.
sort of burnt that candle on both ends. So basically, what that looked like was I had my scholars in virtual, real live class in session from 8 to 1. Then I had a team. I called them my frontline team, and they called all the students who weren't available during the morning, or we couldn't find them, or they didn't log on, and they got them on from 3 to 5. And then I had a 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. for my seniors only because they were either working or supporting or helping their siblings out, or, there was just not enough technology in the household. So we had to put something in place for them as well. So when you're running that kind of shift for 2 years, you do some stuff to yourself. And then occasionally I was knocking on doors with my social worker and trying to find my babies. So always sort of like in it to win it. I've always either worked in environments where the schools were sort of like shaky on stability or they were failing schools. That's sort of where my passion has always been. Even in my last school, just working on my stakeholders, my students as stakeholders, like I think I've had this conversation so much lately that we go through this inordinate amount of strategy and process, and all we have to do a lot of the times is invite the kids to the table. Like my kids were my stakeholders, my staff were my stakeholders. Like invite the people that are in front of you to the table to make the shift and make the difference. And that was sort of like the key thing I did as an administrator, was just invite the stakeholders that are most impacted by the learning environment that they're in, to the table. So yeah, that's just sort of like how I did what I did, sort of like transitioning during that pivotal point in COVID, everyone's life. And so now taking what I've learned over the past 25 plus years into educational consulting, going into schools, supporting new teachers. I see it's a high need in terms of like supporting new teachers. I also have a deep concern for the next generation of our kids. And so I see a lot of people just leaving the educational field in droves. And so that's alarming and a concern to me. And the reason why I pivoted into the coaching and the consulting field, to get into as many communities as possible, to support as many teachers as possible. So I do that. And I'm also partnered with a company in Finland called Arctic Nest, where I'm currently working on my PhD, to really hone in on the strategies that work in a different country, because they were where we are today in America. And 20 something years ago, they made some shifts and some differences. So I want to study that country, see how they made those shifts, and see what we can glean from that experience, because everything doesn't work everywhere. But there are those impactful moments and strategies and structures that can always be taken from somewhere else that's successful, and say, how can we glean from that and make improvements and shifts here? Because, like I said, I'm really concerned about the face of education and what it's looking like for our current and future generation of kids.
No, I love it. No, and thank you for that. Shucks, what 25 years in the field of education. You're currently in New York City.
I'm still currently in New York, but I go everywhere. I
You,
just came back from Finland, working with a group of school leaders from Indonesia.
oh
Uh,
wow,
and then last week on election day, I was over in Boston doing some professional development there for staff members, on just being able to collectively work together as leadership training and student engagement.
I love it. Okay, and I heard you say something that's pretty interesting to me. You call the students stakeholders. You know, and why is that?
Because it's their community.
It's their community.
It's
So
their community. It's not ours. I always told the staff, we're visitors. This
mm,
is their community. They have the biggest stake in what happens in their community. And so they should be invited to the table because we're here to serve them. If we don't have students, we don't have a business, we don't have a school. And so inviting them as stakeholders, because any decision that we're going to make, they should have a voice. Like that's why you have a company, is because you invite those key members to the table that's going to make decision that's going to move your company forward. That's why you have that company, that corporation, your board members. So I believe that my students should be a part of being board members of the school that's impacting their life. And so that's why I call them stakeholders.
no, I like that. So that's not a traditional role for students. Yeah, okay. That's where I was getting. I was like, hold on, that's not a traditional role for students. So
No.
so no, I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. So what's been some of the impact and outcomes? Because I heard you say something a little totally different, particularly during the time of COVID. The school schedule was off. It was different. It looked different. So I'm thinking, did that ideal come from the stakeholders? What was some of that? How was this stakeholders bringing these students in to add their voice and get their perspective help you become or lead from a different perspective?
So, one of the things when I initially walked into this particular school environment, I welcomed the students to meet with me before I met with any of the staff or teachers. So I welcomed them to the table to tell me what was working, what wasn't working, what were some of the things that they felt we could keep, and what were some of the things they felt needed to shift. Now, it doesn't mean that everything was going to happen right then and there, but I wanted to hear from their lens first because, like I said, it's their community and they're the most impacted by what happens in their school community. So when I initially took over the school years prior, they were invited to the table. We went from having over 300 in the school when I inherited, it had over 300 incidents per school year. It's only 182 days in the school year.
Wow.
Um, Attendance was in the low 70s. Graduation was in the high 40%. So you have to first hear my lens. You have to first hear from them what is it that they really need in order to be able to make a difference, make an impact. Not only just academically in the classroom, but you want to make it an environment that they want to be in. And so you have to bring them to the table. So that was my initial start 7 years prior when I originally started with the school. I was like, I think 2015 when I started with the school. So they came in with the ideas. They came to the table. We talked about what worked, what wouldn't work. We had one incident that happened in year two. It was a blowout incident. It was a gang, basically a gang war fight that happened in the main corridor between two schools. So you're
Oh,
talking
wow.
about like 400 kids and just pure craziness. And I brought my kids to the auditorium right after, and I said, That's not what we're here for. That's not the environment that we want. As a student government, you made some requests. You said you want to have these things, and I said, we're going to meet midway. I need you to do your part, and I'm going to do my part to get you the things. That's what the initial conversation I had with them that you said you wanted in your environment. We had a very long conversation. I'm talking over 300 kids in an auditorium, and we're just having a conversation like a town hall. I want to hear what you have to say.
What were some of those things? What were some of those? Just maybe one, two things that they wanted, and were you able to accommodate them? And what was
They
that impact?
they wanted to have their career, like it was a career type high school. So they wanted, for example, for it to be more than just a career day. They wanted to have careers infused within their entire experience while they were there because they
Mm,
felt like the one-off experience wasn't allowing them to connect with business owners. It wasn't allowing them to really connect with their careers.
mhm.
So that was one of the things that they really wanted to just get away from this. You come in, you give a presentation, and then you're gone, and we never see you again.
Right.
So that was one of their requests. The other request, of course, is trips. But, we want to do the academic trips, but we also want to have the trips that are fun. We want to do other things aside from, the traditional experiences that we've been having in New York City since elementary school. So can we have these trips? So like, can we do like a Fright Fest type thing for like a senior activity?
Okay.
Like we talking about some real fun,
Yeah. Yeah.
And they wanted other things changed in the environment as well, but those were like the two top major things that
What
they was
that
on
they
their
want?
request list.
No, I think that's beautiful. Were you able to meet that need, that request,
Oh,
or was it?
yes.
Yeah.
We went from having those one-offs be every single ninth grader took entrepreneurship.
Mm,
It was a requirement. It
hmm.
wasn't a suggestion. So they were building their companies from the ground up. We were doing projects with WeWorks in Manhattan. So they got that. We had culinary. Most of that had my boys in it. I was so happy because I was like, yes, we're going to go to college and learn how to cook.
Come on,
Um,
guys.
so they had performing arts, they had coding, and then we also had a group of students that wanted that advanced track. So
Mm,
they wanted to do more than just the AP advanced placement classes. They wanted like college classes, and we got them. They were working with Harvard, Cornell, taking college courses. So we got them to the point where they got those things that they needed. But in that moment, that was sort of like that pivotal deciding moment. I basically said, look, you have about 20 students here who it's not that they don't want an education, they just haven't quite understood the importance of it as yet.
hmm,
But
hmm.
you can't allow that destruction from a small handful to determine your entire living environment, because basically, this is where they got most of what they needed.
Right.
And so they understood after that conversation, and they walked out of there, Dwayne. And the seniors were like, we don't do that here anymore. The cell phone stopped coming out. They were given that opportunity to step up to the plate and have pride in their environment, and they took hold of it.
Yeah.
And so that was that defining moment
Hmm.
where when I gave them the power to make a
Yes.
decision
Yeah.
as to what type of environment you want to step into every day and let them know that the power is in your hands,
Yeah.
they rose to the occasion. That's
Absolutely.
basically what happened.
Yeah.
And then we just kept meeting at the tables in different groups for different reasons and making those small shifts and changes, which is why we could go from over 300 incidents to less than 30 in 4 years,
Oh wow.
and a graduation rate that went from 47, 48% to 80% in four
Come on.
years.
Come on. Yeah.
So, and their attendance went from like low 70s to like in the 80s. But it wasn't, there's no magic. Like, it's not a one woman show. Like,
No.
we worked collectively to make this happen. And the students were a huge catalyst in moving that forward. Once they're empowered with the boundaries and everything, like, we got to the point. Okay, so this part may sound a little bit crazy, but it worked beautifully. Okay.
All right.
We had a leadership team because they got the leadership training and everything like that, to the point where the students hired the teachers.
Hold on. They got to choose what teachers came to work at the school.
Yes.
Get out of here.
Nope. They
Get.
hired their teachers
Are you
because
serious?
they got the training, leadership training. They understood, they took resume writing course. They understood how to read a resume. They worked on their own interview questions. They sat in the classroom when the teacher gave the demo lessons. And then, but the teacher didn't know that the students that were sitting in the class were going to interview. And at the end of their demo lesson, they would walk that candidate over to the interviewing room and ask the candidate their questions. So they got to decide and choose. That teacher is impacting their life at the end of the day. And so they got a say in the teachers that got hired in the building to provide instructions to them.
I love that. I mean, I hear so much there. It's so rich too. And I just in the story that you told, what I see leadership. I see five practicing leadership that I love, and that's one, being able to model who you desire to be, inspiring the shared vision. I see that within your community, within your students, enabling them to act, to to take charge and take not just in charge of their life, but their education,
Mhm.
challenging them throughout the process. And then I think there's a reward, right? There's some encouragement. Not only do we're gonna rock with your vision, but we're gonna encourage you to see if you can make the best choices, in your how you desire to be educated. I think that's phenomenal. I literally think that's phenomenal. How you came in and made such a tremendous impact in this community. I know there's a lot there, right? And so, given these stakeholders, that's what you call them. I don't want to call them students. But given
I
given
call
these
them scholars. My scholars were my stakeholders. Yep.
uh, given these stakeholders, um, what were some of the challenges in developing this? Um, I just didn't think you said it's not a one woman show or one person show. This took collective teamwork. What was some challenges there in the beginning, and maybe what was the process to overcome that challenge?
Well, the challenge is coming in as a female
Oh,
and looking at the staff and them not necessarily believing that the shift can take place in their community because they had been in a situation of just negative interaction with each other as a staff. So when you come in and you're talking about us working together collectively and we are going to move the needle together and we are here for our students, and one weak link in the chain is going to affect how like that kind of conversation and dialogue was new and they didn't believe it. So
yeah,
it was sort of like just working through the mindset shift of the
of the team.
staff,
Yeah,
and then taking those with you that want to do the work and ready to roll up your sleeve, and then others seeing that it's happening and then slowly beginning to join the force of doing what the masses are doing. So it was really shifting the mindset of the staff that it could happen with these kids.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's beautiful. That's real good. And when I asked that question, the last person I was thinking about is the staff. But you actually the biggest challenge might have been the buy-in of your team. Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
And then you work with the other, and for me, and I think many administrators would probably totally disagree with me, but I was never worried about what was happening in their home life. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, we want more parent involvement." Parent involvement, I am all for parent involvement, and parent involvement is crucial. But when you're working in certain communities where you know that the community that you're in, they're on survival. Like they're like, I gotta pay the rent, I gotta pay this, I gotta they're not necessarily going to be the ones that are going to show up, but that
right.
doesn't mean that you still can't. It is more challenging, but you can still get to that kid. You
Yeah.
can still pull that child into being a part of the process. It
Yeah.
just takes more energy and work. So I wasn't too worried about outside forces.
Mhm.
I mean, but the one thing I needed my team inside so that when they came in, we were there for them.
I like that. I love that. And I know when you say some of the parents, some of these things can be challenging. Having the parents, they got full time jobs, they got other responsibilities that kind of hinder them. Let's say that from
Hmm.
from being more active or engaged with
Right.
their particular stakeholder, i.e., student. Man, that's good. And I think I heard you say too that you had to take that extra mile. You was knocking on some doors. So I guess would that be some of that process you were talking about that I had to
I
it took a
think
little bit more?
that's been innate in me from being a teacher. Like I
Mhm.
was the teacher that took my dinner to your doorstep and said, "Can I come in and speak with you?" So that's been my whole entire career. I always had one staff member that I would drag with me and say, "Okay, we're going to go visit some houses, and I got my dinner and I'm ringing your doorbell and I'm calling you on the phone. I'm saying, 'Hey, you got like 5 minutes?'"
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can. I'm downstairs. Is it okay if I come upstairs? I'm gonna just keep you for 5. So that's been an 8. I've had that my whole career. But during the pandemic, I pulled my social worker with me and we just had to go out and just find the ones that weren't logging on, find the ones that, weren't there. And a lot of what we did come from our seniors. So I
Mm,
spoke heavily to the senior class to find out what they needed, what was working, what wasn't working, to make whatever little tweaks and shifts we needed to make to be able to support them.
that's good. So, man, it's so much here. So much here. I promise you, it's so much here. So do me this. Do tease me a little bit. Give me a little back history on Miss Julia Baly. Like what was it like for her growing up, coming up, and moving into education, this realm called education, man? Bec-
So
yeah.
I was actually born in the Caribbean. I was born in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin
Okay.
Islands. Came to New York City at the age of 16. Didn't know I was coming. I found out when my mama was selling the living room furniture that I was coming. There was no conversation. You don't talk to West Indian parents about things that are happening. You find out as it's happening. So came up and had a lot of challenges, just had a lot of unexpected challenges. I'm coming from a nice, comfortable, cushy living in the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nice breeze. Everybody takes everything a little bit slower, laid back. And just coming here was a culture shock, an academic shock, a mental shock, an emotional shock, all of it. And so we had a lot of challenges. And one of the things that happened during high school, unfortunately, was I was homeless for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a couple of classmates that took me in, and you slept on some bedroom floors, and then you made it work. And then I went to college and just gradually started to understand what it meant to live in this, because I didn't even have a chance to process it in high school. But really start to navigate and understand what it means to live in New York City and be a part of this big apple. And I had some challenges there as well, because I'm that get up and go person. And when you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to try to figure out another way around it. And so
I see. Quite obvious.
And so I wanted to do education for undergrad. They told me I couldn't do it in 3 years. I said, okay, have a nice day. So I switched majors to psychology. I went into medicine at first, actually. I worked as a nursing aide and a nursing technician in a geriatric floor in a hospital. And then God just showed up, like a few years of doing that. And I saw an opportunity of a paper just folded underneath a phone. And it said, if you want to get your master's degree, it was a initiative by the governor of New York. We're paying for people to go into education if you want to get that degree. And so the thing I said I wanted to do at the age of 5 came back to me,
Yeah.
like almost like 20 years later, and
Mm-hmm.
it was paid for. And that got me on the path back to where I was supposed to be. Like my mom said, oh, finally, you're on track. She's like, I don't know what this whole working in the hospital thing was about, but now you're on track based on what you said you wanted to do at the age of 5. So I got back on track to where I wanted to be. I always said it's my mission field. Like going to work was good, like going to church for me.
Yeah.
That's how I saw it. Like I just
Oh.
absolutely love what I do.
Yeah. You say going to work is like going to church. You- Break that down. Talk to me about.
Because for me it's the serving. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
leadership you need. Like leadership is the thing that but my leadership, what I did came from my serving.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was going to work every single day and I was just serving God's children.
Yeah.
And that's how I saw them. I saw it as an honor and a privilege, not a job.
Yeah.
Now, working in the system is very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the nature of the beast. But me going in every day was serving his kids. It was an honor for me that he would allow me to shepherd his children as a principal, because
Yeah.
that means that you really believe and you've instilled in me, and I'm moving forward with really helping to do something about kids in this particular community. So that's why I said for me it was more like going to church, because every day sometimes I got my babies in the auditorium. They don't know I'm praying over them before I
Come
start
on.
talking to them.
Come on. I love that. So this was purpose-filled mission for you. This
Yes,
was heartfelt mission for you. Oh, this is
yes.
beautiful.
Yes. And so
And
that's for me right now, even stepping outside of the sort of like brick and mortar and me doing this doctoral program is for me to get to I want to get to the sort of the cogs that really make education turn in a more effective way for kids.
Mhm.
So it's like, what is it exactly that we're missing, that we're not providing teachers with, so they're unable to provide it for kids? And so that's sort of like what my current mission is is I want to crack open that code and figure out if teachers get this particular, whatever it is, experience in their learning, then they could provide this experience for students to learn. And so that's where I am currently.
I think you've done that. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, think about the work what you explained to me and how you got your leaders together to think outside the box, to see things from a different perspective. I think you found that niche. I think sometimes we get so fixated on what we think things should look like because it's been done this way for so long. But when we get outside the box and we try some different approaches, and we get a few buy-ins, man, I think that's the impact right there. I think that's the impact right there. I think you're doing a phenomenal job. I know you said this earlier, and I'm going back to your team, um, and some of the challenges that you were experiencing with them, getting them to get on board with the new outlook, the new vision for life. Um, get my thought here. And I know you said, "Hey, listen, I see teachers walking away. I see teachers leaving. There's a gap here." Talk to me more about that gap, and I hear you mention it now, but talk to me more about that gap, and what is it you think may be missing, and how can what's the next move? I suppose. What do you think missing, and how do you think you look to move forward
I
with that?
think what's missing, because I've heard it frequently enough, is that they're not being invited. They're being dictated and told what to do.
We talking to the teachers.
Teachers.
Hmm.
They're not they're not stakeholders. They're not being brought to the table.
Mm.
They're not being valued in having ideas to our current solutions. Like,
Oh, that's good.
they people don't, a lot of the times we don't look, like I said, the answer is 9 out of 10 times in the room. It's in the
Yeah.
school.
Hmm.
And so a lot are, if just I look on social media, they just don't feel valued in the profession anymore.
Hmm.
And no one quite knows how to support or solve the gap. So we've always had a gap in education. Like, I could speak for working in the South Bronx. A lot of the times the kids just came to high school and they were below where they needed to be. That was just the nature of the beast. However, the gap widened during the pandemic. And currently what I see is a lot of running around in crisis mode. And so everybody's like on this hamster wheel going, try this, do this, bring this program in, try this program. Da, da, da. I still have a lot of friends on the inside, and it's a lot of band-aids, but no real solutions.
Mm.
And so the frustration that teachers have right now is, can you allow us to talk about what some of the solutions are? But it's like they're being muted.
Mm.
And so they're just frustrated and they're sick and tired of, let's try this initiative, let's try this initiative, let's try this initiative. So it's just like, I'm going to give you this cookie cutter possible solution that may work for 2 or 3 of your kids in a classroom of 25 or 30. But can we talk about collectively what could work? And can we come to the table? And a lot of what I'm hearing and seeing is they're just not being invited to those conversations.
Not being invited to the conversation. What's some of that conversation look like? What are some of those ideas those teachers bring to the table? Like, what do they think could be more useful or impactful for your community as stakeholders?
Well, a lot of them are concerned, like I was. I was on the same trajectory. I had a conversation as well with my supervisor when I said, "Hey, we have these babies coming in," and other teachers have had the same conversation. I've been a part of those conversations where they said, "We have these babies coming in. They're coming to high school on a ninth grade level for ninth grade. But however, we're talking about now they're reading on an elementary, third, fourth grade level.
Mm.
What are some things that we can do about that situation, as opposed to just constantly pushing ahead how do we actually do things or bring in a program if we have to go that route that's going to start to close that gap so that they're
Yeah.
more successful.
Yeah.
And so teachers have a recommendation in terms of like doubling certain class, like English classes, for example, in high school. Like, let's give them an actual reading period in
Mm,
addition to the English class that they have. Let's, have the additional support for them, not just tutoring after school, because a lot of them, especially in high school, elementary school is different, but in high school, they're out the door.
mhm,
And a lot of the times it's because they have to work to help pay bills or have
mm,
money in their own pockets just because it's the community that we're in. So like, how do you close those gaps? And teachers have recommendation in certain areas of expertise, whether it's a program or a methodology that they have or a strategy that they have, but they're using it in isolation. So you're frustrated
mm.
and we
Wow.
can't bring it to the table and see if this is something that's applicable that could help everyone.
Wow. 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 Man, that's powerful. And what I think what I heard here too is that we got students that's reading below the national average.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes, that's a huge, it's a conversation that most people don't want to have
Right.
because they don't know necessarily how to solve it, and the
Mm,
people that have the answers, it's going to take time.
yeah.
And that's one of the things that we negate in education
Mhm.
is we want everything fixed like yesterday. Like I call it, you want a microwave solution for a problem that's been in existence for decades. We can't microwave this in 60 seconds. We got to put something in place that's going to take some time. And they don't want to hear that.
Absolutely. I think, but I mean, in everything that we do, I think this whole world wants microwave success. We want everything overnight, and it's a process. It takes
Yeah.
time. It takes leaders like you to go in and knock the walls out, so to speak, and give
But then
give.
you get labeled as a, but then you get Dwayne, but then you get labeled as a non-team player.
What? What? That's because everybody like things comfortable, man.
Yes, yes, yes,
Everybody like things come. Nobody don't like change, man. I don't
yes.
like change, but I just gonna be real. I don't like change. All right, so I want to push us a little forward. I was on your website and I saw recipes. I know you do some coaching. Talk to me more about Julia Bailey's foundation and consulting. What she does.
So yeah, there are recipes on there because so secret about educators, we have the worst diet.
Okay. So, okay. So give me this. So give me an example of a worse diet for educators.
So for example, we eat a lot of, and I was guilty of doing this as well. Sometimes I brought in nice fruits, apples and oranges and stuff on Monday because we would have that additional professional development time.
Mhm.
But on Fridays, that was a different thing. We're having pastries, we're having bagels, we're having, when people are stressed and they're like, I got to get this done, we're ordering fried chicken and french fries from the corner deli.
Listen,
Um,
y'all doing the right thing, as far as I'm concerned.
you know, we're going to the corner store and we're grabbing the bags of snacks that's just going to keep us going with all the different color, red 40, yellow, whatever, that's just not, we tell the kids not to do it, but then we're doing it. So yeah, we don't have we don't have the healthiest. And so one of the things educators suffer if and when they make it to retirement with a
Mhm.
lot of health concerns,
Yeah.
because we've pushed ourselves through beyond our possible limit, because it's one of those professions, like I always say, you can't leave it at the door.
Mhm.
You don't get to clock out and shut your computer down at 4 or 5 o'clock and say, now I'm going to go home and transition to my family or myself. 9 out of 10 times you're correcting papers, you're planning, you're concerned about a child situation that took place, and you're trying to figure out who you can call to still. So it's sort of like that thing where I always told my staff, the school year stops, it doesn't end.
That's good. That's real good.
So we give so much of ourselves in this particular field that we a lot of the times don't nourish and take care of ourselves. So that's why I slapped those quick recipes up there. but my heart and soul is, and I also am certified as a health and wellness coach as well.
Okay.
I took some time out to make sure that I did that component because I really a lot of the professional development that I'm currently doing is going in and supporting educators with their personal and their professional stress.
Yeah.
So like looking at your personal and professional stress and how do we, and I don't want to say work life balance. I know that's a word that a lot of people know, but how do we get that harmony going?
Come on. I wish I had an applaud button for that. Yes.
But
Yes. Yes, the rhythm. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
rhythm. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do the rhythm. Let's get that harmony going because
Yeah.
sometimes you're going to have, you're going to ebb and flow. Some is going to be a little bit more than others. But how do we get that harmony going where we're not burning ourselves out? So, which is actually what I just did in Boston and in Finland, just doing that work on yourself because we bring our personal into our professional and vice versa.
Yeah.
So where and how do we get this harmony going so that we can be better people and we can be healthier people? We can make it to retirement and enjoy it. So there's that component that I do, and I'm huge on communication and student engagement. So that's another big workshop that I do in terms of supporting adults with understanding how to communicate with students. And then how do we get that dialogue going in the classroom? How do we allow students to be able to self-assess? That's another huge component of my practice.
Hmm.
And then just being able to come in and support new teachers in their work.
That's good, man. That's real good. And I think they need it. I heard it just from this conversation that teachers are fading out. They're burning out. Um, and they're not feeling welcome or appreciated.
Mhm.
And that can be challenging. I love that. I truly love that. So I'm about to close this thing out, but I do have one final question for you.
Sure.
And that is educators from the male perspective. What's your outlook on that? And what do we need more male educators?
Yes.
Talk to me about.
We
Um,
do. We do. It's there it male educators being that role model that a lot of our young men need to be able to see. And I'm not just talking in high school, I'm talking from elementary school on up.
mm,
It's non-existent. You're thinking I had maybe 20 to 25% of my staff at the time were males.
oh wow.
And the rest was it's a female dominated career field. But
Most
we need more males in the career field. For me, one of the major components is so that kids, our generation that's growing up, sees it as a viable career path.
hmm
And the more examples they see, then they will go into the career path because they'll see that this is a viable career path for men.
Yes.
And so that's one thing. And then the other thing is just having that role model, having that bond, speaking with a female, teacher or staff member as a male student, your needs are just different.
hmm
And yes, we can speak to you, we can have those conversations with you, but the lens of a man in the field of education is vital and it's important and it is lacking.
It is. It is. I see. I mean, today I've recognized more men in the field of education. I remember growing up, we had a good friend by the name of Dwight. Um, and we used to pick on Dwight because his passion was to go be an educator. He started off in the elementary, and he's an educator today. And so when I look back at my ignorance, I think to your point, young men need to see men in this profession, so they can get a different outlook. I think so often we glorify the NBA star, the football player, or the hockey player, whatever that may look like, right? But we don't lift up and admire our educators. So hats off definitely to all educators, but daggone it, those men. I think having men in that place is a powerful outlook for future educators. Good
It
stuff.
is because like one of the things, and I think that's one of one of my prayers in terms of being able to get it back in this country and every country is understanding that at the end of the day, education is your base foundation for society, and everything comes out of that experience. And so having that equity between men and women in the field would just make that much of a vast difference, I believe.
Good stuff, real good stuff. All right, Julia Bailey, this has been phenomenal. I really enjoyed myself. You are a treat, no doubt. Please talk to the people, tell the people how they can learn more about what you do and how you serve.
So you can learn more about what I do. JB Academic Consulting is my business that I own, and you can reach me at juliabaly.com. That's juliabaly.com. And there you can do a 45-minute consultation as to how we can work together, either one-on-one or coming into your school community to support your teachers, your new teachers, to provide professional development, and my personal favorite, student engagement.
Come on, love it, love it, love it. Now, my last question: how can I serve you? How can we help you make the impact you desire to make?
Excellent question. In terms of, well, one, I just inviting me on here, thank you very much. And just being able to have that access to, more viewers, and just being able to be in this space, I believe will be and is a blessing in itself. So I appreciate that. What I do and what I believe is needed in the field of education, I definitely welcome in the future.
Phenomenal. Listen, guys, don't miss an opportunity. Connect with Julia Bailey. She's doing phenomenal things out in NYC. For you educators that's saying, hey, you know what? I'm burnt out. I just don't know what else to do. Go check out our webpage, juliabailey.com. Schedule your one-on-one consultation call. That's it. Says the clock on the wall. I want to say thank you for guys for taking time with us. Please, whatever you do, share the feed, tag a friend, let them know that the leader shift was live. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you.